You know probably more than I know in a lot of different ways, and that's totally fine. What I will teach you will hopefully help you enhance your production and give you some ideas of how to bring more value to the real estate offering. And that's where I spend almost all of my time, is try to understand where our customers are, what they want, and what we can do as real estate agents to make our offering a little bit more than just a transaction. How many of you feel like you're getting stuck in the transaction? Especially over the last year or two, right? And what does that mean with getting stuck in the transaction? We're getting people that call us up in a frantic mode to want to look at a house. Like, for example, if someone goes online and finds a house, how soon do they want to look at it? Right this second, right? And doesn't that make you feel good about, do you ever feel like an Uber car driver, right? But, like, literally, you have to have that phone connected to you all the time. Might as well have apps. I think that would be a pretty cool app. I could imagine a broker doing this, where they have an app with all their agents, and you can see where all the agents are and see if there's one close to the house that you want to go look at, right? Do you think that might happen someday? I mean, something like that could happen, right? Because what happens with our buyers is they're looking at trying to find someone that will help them get into that house as quickly as possible. And do they really care who opens that door? No. Not so much. And that's pretty sad. It's really sad, because what you have to offer as a real estate agent goes well beyond being a glorified door opener. And yet, our customers are learning that if they go online to find a house, that there's lots of available agents to go and show them that property. And why would they wait and spend time going through a presentation or something that would go beyond just trying to get into that house? And then they already believe that they know what the house is worth and what they should offer on it, because Zestimate tells them that, right? And that's where most of them are going. How many people go, do you think, every day, or every month I should say, because I don't know the daily rate, but every month to Zillow and their partner Trulia? Any idea? 42 million people. 42 million people. Last year they earned $8.4 billion in leads that they sell to all of you, right? Well, not all of you, but some of you. How many of you hate Zillow? Anybody hate Zillow here? Yeah, It's kind of the two-headed snake, isn't it, right? It's one of those things where we need leads. Do we need leads to do business? We do. If we don't have leads, we don't have business. Leads are what drive any business, and especially in our business. Where do those leads come from? Most agents that I coach or work with, they want to work with referrals. They love referrals. How many of you love referrals? Yeah? Why do you love referrals so much? They're easier because they respect your time. They respect your expertise a little bit more sometimes, right? And then, of course, Homie reminds them that they shouldn't be paying their friends so much money, right, on the billboards that are out there. So how do we find out what our customers want and deliver that to them at a high level so that they respect your expertise and your time? It's tough in a market where the value proposition of real estate is misaligned with what our real estate agents are trying to offer. Most of the time, well, let me point out what the three value propositions of any offering are. There are three drivers that basically, get us to want to buy from different people, different, companies or different offerings. One of them is, what's one driver for anything that you purchase? It doesn't matter whether it's clothes or cars or anything else. What's one thing that always influences that purchase? Okay, price is one. It's usually the common denominator, right? What are the other two?
Emotion.
Well, emotion can be part of that. That's true. And in a lot of cases, not so much with real estate, the emotion is there about the house. But when you're thinking about the real estate agent that you pick, emotion can be a part of it because of the referrals that you get from people that love you, right? Your raving fans. But in a lot of cases, the emotion is more tied to the house and those type of things, right? Now, in other brands that are well known, like your Apple computer, how many of you are Apple fans? Right? You have an Apple computer and an Apple phone, and they talk to each other and all those things. And any of you stand in line for it as soon as the new one comes out? Isn't that kind of crazy in our, it's kind of crazy that people will buy a phone worth $1,000, paying their $35 a month or whatever, and then as soon as the next one comes out, even though that contract isn't up yet, they're out there trying to get the new phone. So that's where emotion comes in. So we don't have that kind of driver so much in real estate when it comes to picking an agent. But price is one. The convenience is number two. We miss that a lot. Convenience is actually a driver for what people purchase. And then number three is the quality of the product or service. Okay. Now, when I talk to most agents, just so I can be clear, you want to be the very best at one of those and competitive at the other two to be viable in the marketplace. Does that make sense? The very best at one and competitive at the other two. Now, just as an example, if my wife calls me on the way home from work and she says, hey, honey, can you pick up some milk? I've got options. I could go to the Maverick and pick up some milk. How many choices I'm going to have at the Maverick for milk? Maybe 2 at the most, 1 or maybe 2. I have to make sure I check the expiration date, make sure it's not expired, but it's going to be really convenient for me. I can get in and out in a second. If I'm trying to get home really fast, it's a super easy way to get some milk. Now, I could go to Smith's or Harmon's, and if I go to Smith's or Harmon's, what do I get from that offering? I get a whole selection, right, of everything you could imagine when it comes to milk, even all the non-milk products that we have nowadays. My wife now likes macadamia nut milk. You've heard of that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're making milk out of all the nuts and oats and all sorts of different things out there. But you get a lot more choices. And I'm not actually going to pay as much. If I go to Maverick, how much I'm going to pay for the little bit of, the little tiny 1 liter, or is it a liter? The half gallon or whatever it is of milk. I'm going to pay like $5 for that, for the convenience. So I pay more for convenience, but if I want the convenience, I'm willing to pay for it. Does that make sense? So that's an easy, thing if I'm trying to get in and out really quick. But if I want more selection and a little bit less price, then I can go to the Smiths or the Harmons, but the convenience isn't as good, right? So I can go and I park and I have to walk through, and it's always in the very back. You notice milk and eggs and all the staple things are always in the way back. Why are they in the way back? So I buy stuff when I come back, right? So I get attracted to all the things that they have for sale. And then my cheapest option, what's going to be my cheapest option of all those? Walmart, right? You can buy milk at Walmart now. So you all know that, right? Yeah. I go all the way in the back of the super center and buy the milk. It takes me about, it's a half a mile walk from where I have to park to where I actually go back and get the milk. And then I come up and they have like 30 registers there, but only 2 are open. So it's not very convenient. If I want to buy other things, which they have plenty of other things, I could spend my whole day in Walmart. Am I going to get a lot of help? Are people going to let me know that this TV is better than that TV or anything like that? No, I'm completely on my own, but I'm saving a lot of money. So what I want to impress on you is that in every offering, no matter what it is, clothes, milk, shoes, whatever you buy, typically the 3 primary drivers are going to be the quality of that product or service, the convenience of that purchase, right, or the price of that, right? And it comes down to the price as the common denominator. If I find 2 things that are pretty much the same, otherwise I'll probably go for what's cheaper. So now let's put it in context with our customers, right? Our real estate customers. On the buyer side, which of those 3 do you think is most important to them? It's not price, because they don't pay for it. Who pays for the buyer agent? The seller does, right? Right. So the convenience is the driver for our buyers. And that's why when someone calls you up and you have your phone stuck to you, I know real estate agents wherever I go. My kids play sports, right? And I can tell the real estate agents because they're the ones walking along, the sidelines with their phone. They're the ones on vacation in Hawaii that are out there on their phone on the beach while they're working. Any of you feel like that way? No one's laughing because you know how true that is. It's kind of a hurtful thing, right? Because we're always working.
If you want to drive business, go on vacation.
Yeah, exactly. Business, how many of you feel that way? Business seems to increase when you're not trying to work. Yes. You're sitting in the office and you're trying your hardest to call people up and get them to answer the phone, and nothing happens. As soon as you go to your kid's game or you go to dinner or you go on vacation, all of a sudden the phone just keeps ringing, right? Yeah. But convenience is the primary driver for that, right? So on the listing side of it, what's the primary driver? Prices, right? Because they're looking at net gain. So what I'm going to teach you over the course of these 9 weeks is how to present a true value of service offering where people respect your time and they respect your money. Wouldn't that be nice? Right? And that's one of the most difficult things to do. And that's why this insurgence of discount services have come into the market. We have iBuyer, we have Redfin, we have Homey, all sorts of different services, and many of them are brokers. Nothing wrong with what they're offering. Walmart parking lots are always going to be full. There are always going to be people, and most of them are in Utah County, but I'm just kidding, that are going to want to do things on their own, right? That feel like the cheapest price is the best. But is cheapest always the best? How many of you pay more for the food that you eat? Right? Do you eat the cheapest food that's out there? Do you wear the cheapest clothes that are out there? Do you buy the cheapest cars that are out there? Sometimes maybe you do, but it's not something that always drives your purchase decision. But with our customers, the problem that they're seeing, and we've caused a lot of this, is they can't tell the difference between what you do and what you do and what you do and what Homey does or what Redfin does. And when it comes down to where they can't tell the difference, what are they going to go for? The cheapest price if it comes down to price, what they're going to pay for it. Or on the buying side, who is the most convenient. Did you know the average buyer today goes through 3.2 agents in the process of buying a house? You think they stick with one agent, but they don't. When we did this research, some of them felt guilty. They even admitted that they felt guilty, that they didn't call the same agent that showed them the first home, right? But that guilt only lasted for so long. If you didn't answer your phone, if you didn't get back to them quick enough, they were calling another agent, okay? So how do we impress on people a value of service and help them understand that it's in their best interest? Because that's what this is all about. We're in a free market, in a capitalist country, where people pay for what they feel like they're getting value from, right? We can't force people to buy certain products or services. So if we don't understand what they want, and we can't position our offering based on exactly what they want, then we end up being out of business. We can't sustain that. How many of you remember Blockbuster? Anybody remember Blockbuster? Anybody still have Blockbuster videos sitting around their house? Anybody have those? Yeah. I still have a few actually sitting in our storage, right? You know why? Because I was afraid to take them back because they had $250+ fines that were stuck on, right? So yeah, do you remember those days? If you remember that? Yeah, so the way their model worked, and it's funny, there's a interview that Motley Fool did. You know Motley Fool, so they're an investment group. They did an interview with the CEO of the company at that time. Now this was back in the early 2000s, right? And it's easy to look back and make fun of things like this. But he was interviewed and he said, are you worried about Netflix and this red vending machine? Right? Remember, what's the red vending machine? Red box, right? Which is now becoming obsolete a little bit, right? Because things change, right? So he was asked, are you worried about it? And he's like, no. People want to come in to our stores. Drive the 10 or 15 minutes to come into our brick and mortar stores and browse our 5,000 titles that we have. And they found out later that they weren't browsing the 5,000 titles. What were they really doing when they go to the Blockbuster stores? They go to the outer walls, because what's on the outer walls? The new releases. And they were paying a lot of money for that. Right, having a brick and mortar store with people in the store, and then these new releases that came out sometimes a week or two before they were out of the theater. And if they didn't have enough of them up on the wall, you get a rain check. Do you remember those days? Yeah. And you had to pay like $5 to rent a movie. This was like 20 years ago, which is nuts. That's a lot of money back then. But people that maybe had a big family or something like that would opt to be able to get that movie. But he was completely convinced that that's what they wanted to do, right? Did you know that Netflix was actually created for Blockbuster? Anybody know that that's how Netflix started? Netflix actually was created, its founder created it for the purpose of supporting Blockbuster customers. They went to Blockbuster and offered Netflix for $13 million. It was chump change back then. Literally, Blockbuster was like a multi-billion-dollar business. It was the largest aftermarket movie offering that was out there, and that's why it was created. Now, in those days, they were sending out CDs, right, or DVDs, I should say, out to the customers. And then they started doing streaming. Now, it's easy to look at that now and say that's stupid, right? But, they didn't have Stranger Things and, all the other, streaming media that they have now. But he was a little bit, or we'd say quite a bit, out of tune with what customers really wanted. The convenience for Redbox was really, that really made that grow at first. You could stop by a Maverick and pick up your $1 movie. And with Redbox, it was not only just $1, even though there's only 50 titles you could choose from, and maybe not the newest releases, but somewhat new, right? What happens if you kept that video for more than 20 days? Anybody know? You owned it, right? Whereas with Blockbuster, their opportunity cost was that every day that video was outside of their store, they had to charge you the $5 a day for that in order to sustain the cost that it took to provide that offering. So if you kept that video for 20 days, how much did you owe? $100, right? And then all of a sudden, it's not so convenient and not so fun to take that movie back. And that's really what they weren't seeing. Does that make sense? Understanding what drives our customers, understanding how technology and innovation changes that, helps to make sure that we don't keep our heads in the sand and stop thinking that what we have to offer is so important to our customers who are thinking maybe quite differently from that, right? How many of you remember Kodak? Yeah, is Kodak around anymore? Yeah, what happened to Kodak? Did you know that in the 70s, in the 1970s, they invented the digital camera? One of their engineers came up with the digital camera, they patented it, they sat on it for 25 years, as long as they could sit on it, right? Didn't do anything with it, because where was all the money for Kodak? Film and paper. And they were convinced, and it was funny, back in the 70s, you can go back and look at it, he was able to project, the engineer that did that was able to project a photograph, an image onto those, remember those tube TVs, those big old tube TVs? He was able to do that then. And the consensus was by the board, no one's ever going to want to do that. They want to hold that paper, the paper of that picture, put it up on the wall and things like that. Now, again, it's easy to look back and critique that. But if you're not understanding what your customers want and why they want it, you're going to lose sight of what is going to drive them to want to do business with you. And right now, we've done that. The last few years, we've been so spoiled in terms of what the market has been able to offer to our customers, as with low interest rates, as well as to your services. Deals have been just falling out of the sky, right? How many of you put a house on the market and it didn't matter if it smelled, it didn't matter if it was cluttered or dirty, it didn't matter if you took pictures with your phone? How many pictures did you see, or MLS listings where literally they took pictures with their phone of a cluttered, dirty, messy house and it sold in 3 days, right? With multiple offers. Now, did people still walk away from good money during that time? Oh yeah, all the time. How many of you are investors in real estate, right? Every hand should be up, because how else are you going to retire, right? Seriously, if you don't have flips and rentals, you're nuts. I mean, literally, that should be your number one job. Number two should be the real estate services, honestly. If you can use and leverage real estate in order to build and grow your wealth, not only will you be able to do that for yourself, but that's what people need right now when it comes to real estate. Isn't that why people buy real estate? It doesn't matter if it's their own property or if it's other properties that they rent out or flip or whatever that is. We use real estate as a way to provide stability, both financial stability as well as economic stability when it comes to our family and where we raise our kids and any reason that we decide to buy our own property. But the number one driver for buying property is financial, right? So understanding how you can financially support your clients and what it means to buy their first property and instead of paying rent, what it means to move up or to move down, what it means to have passive income. Those are the type of things that are going to help clients look to you as a quality of service beyond the transaction. But we've been stuck in this transactional mode. We've had clients call us up and want to look at a house right now. We jump in our cars, we go show that house, and we hope they want to buy that house. Because if they want to buy the house, we put the contract through and we can make 3% on the house's value. If the average value in Utah right now is how much? Anyone know what it is? Like $600,000. Is that nuts? I remember teaching this just 2 years ago and it was like $380,000, right? $600,000. We'll just say $500,000. If you get $15,000 return on jumping on the phone with someone that wants to look at a house because you bought a lead from Zillow or some other place, you run out and show that house and they like it and you put the contract through and you make $15,000. Does that not sound like a good career to get into? You know why? That's why we have 30,000 licensed real estate agents in the state of Utah, right? But the problem that's caused is that people start thinking, wow, look at these agents that make all this money and they hardly do any work. Yeah, is that not a sad thing? How many of you feel like your role and the things that you do for people have been diminished to this transactional service where they think you're making too much money for what you do? You're working like crazy. If you get 1 or 2 deals a month, you're trying to pay all the bills and trying to take care of all the time that you spend that you don't get paid for. And then when you finally get paid, the people that end up paying you think you're making too much money. So we need to switch this around. Let the discount services offer discount services. But if you want to be a real estate agent of value, then you have to understand what drives people to buy property and how you can help them beyond the transaction. You'll still get paid for the transaction, but it's going beyond the transaction that gets people excited about working with you, gets you more referral business, and separates you from the discount services. The discount services are going to get, I shouldn't say worse, it's not that it's a bad thing, but the discount services are going to continue to come into our market and they're going to get stronger. And they're the ones that people are seeing for all the time that they're spending thinking about buying property. They're going online and getting bombarded with messages and advertisements that tell them that you can do this quicker and easier and cheaper with us than going with a real estate agent that you sit down with and wants to make more money, right? That they're stingy and selfish and have too much money, right? How many of you feel that way? How many of you feel like you make too much money? No, anybody feels that way? Are you sure? You don't feel like when you got into this business, you were hoping to make high six figures, maybe seven figures, and the average real estate agent makes how much money? Does anyone know? $42,000 across the United States.
Wow.
How many of you got into this business thinking, "Whoo, I can't wait to make 42 grand a year"? That's what the average first year agent, you know what the average first year agent makes? $8,000. That's tough. That's really tough. But we do know agents that are really doing a lot better than that. A lot better. But I will tell you that as this separation, and it is happening and it will continue to happen, between the discount services and the high quality services, and those agents that I think have the opportunity to make more money, that there's a demand for it. There's a need for it. So I don't want to depress you with this idea that everything's going to the cheap side of things. But you have to understand how to help people beyond the transaction if you want them to pay for that money, right? To pay for that service. So let's go through this life cycle. By the way, let me show you the life cycle first. There are 6 stages in the homeowner life cycle. Understanding what people are thinking and what they want during each stage of the life cycle is where the value comes from. It's not about the transaction, because that's when they finally get done what they need to get done, and you get paid for that. But that's not where the value is. Anybody can do the transaction. Who can open up a door? Anybody here? Yeah? Who can write a contract and put the contract through? Doesn't mean they do it well. Right? Doesn't mean that there's not problems there that happen all the time. How many of our groups, and you know them, right? Really young agents, there's a few young agents here, where you have these groups that are paying Zillow lots of money to get leads to come in, and they hire brand new agents that have zero experience sometimes. Nothing wrong with that, because you have to start somewhere. But they take those agents and they're available 24/7 because they're willing to do that. And they run out there and show that house and give people what they want on the buying side. And those groups are killing it. Why? Because the convenience of that offering is so great. Then you have veteran agents like a lot of you, and the last thing you want to do is work every single night and weekend and be available 24/7. They're showing a lot of their homes at Sunday afternoon at 5 or 6 o'clock, or Sunday evening at 5 or 6 o'clock. How many of you would like to be with your families during that time and like to do other things? So if you want to be able to compete in this market against these discount services, you have to understand what drives people towards a value of service compared to a value of convenience or a value of low price. How many of you use a CPA? Anybody in here use a CPA? A few hands go up. Why do you use a CPA when TurboTax is $35?
Way more complicated than that.
Is it more complicated? It actually is. Does your CPA give you advice on how to manage your money, especially as a real estate agent, how to categorize it, what you can write off, what you can't write off, things like that? Getting that kind of advice is helpful and helps you pay a lot less in taxes. In the end, hopefully it saves you a lot of money, not costs you a lot of money, right? Think of yourself as a lawyer, as a CPA, as a professional that has more to offer than just the transaction. And then you'll find that people will be gravitated towards that level of service instead of how cheap will you go on the listing and how fast will you come and show me that house. Okay? So as I mentioned before, we have to have leads. Lead generation is the name of the game. It's like if you have a car and it has no gas, right? The gas is like the leads. Your car's not going anywhere no matter how nice it is. You have to have leads. Where do leads come from? According to this, network 54%, digital 20%, open house 8%. Does this sound about right? Somewhere around there? And we're trying to work all of those. If you go on social media now, how many of you get bombarded with all these ideas of how to buy leads, advertise for leads and things like that? It's unfortunate for a lot of our buyers, but it's been kind of the name of the game. But when you have a lot of agents out there, it's happening. When buyers are out there looking online, how many emails and texts and phone calls do you think those buyers are getting? A lot. Tons, right? And people are trying to work through that transaction. So how do we generate leads and get people to work with us that are not just thinking about how do I get into the door, right? I'm going to teach you through this course how to generate leads with people and get them into your pipeline well before they start shopping for homes or as they begin that shopping experience, right? As we talk about this life cycle that they go through. Getting help and advice from you of where they should live and all the other things that they're considering. That's the key to getting more leads. And you have to think about it different than a sales pipeline. So a sales pipeline looks like this. most of what real estate agents are doing is they're going to courses and classes and reading books and trying to figure out, how do I manage my sales pipeline? How many of you heard this sales pipeline so many times, right? So typically what that means is you have leads coming in. So you have some sort of lead funnel. You've heard that. And those leads come in, and their online browsing is when it usually happens. And then they're shopping for a home, right? So they go through the process of going and looking at properties, trying to figure out which one is the right one. They go under contract, then they close, and then it ends. And then you start that cycle over again. And in between, you're trying to get people to come back to you and maybe send you referrals. So what do? What do most agents do? What do you guys do? Send out monthly newsletters? Yeah, we do top of mind marketing. It's recipes sometimes, macadamia nut cookie recipes, or, how many of you do maybe a biannual or even an annual, appreciation event for your clients? How do you stay in touch with your people in this kind of format to keep them wanting to come back and have them send you referrals? What are you all doing? We have a small enough class. I'd love to hear some of the things that you're doing. Because isn't that kind of the way we do it, right? What do you do?
A pool party.
A pool party once a year? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds great. Where do you do it at Cowabungas or?
Farmington.
You're in the Farmington area. Yeah, so pool party. What else are you doing? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Easter egg hunt.
You do what?
Easter egg hunt.
You do an Easter egg hunt. How many do a pumpkin patch event? So you have all the different events out there. Who sends out a monthly newsletter? Anybody send out? Yeah, send out a monthly newsletter. Do you write it, or does another company write it? Just another company writes it, yeah. And that's pretty common. And again, I'm not trying to be critical. Some of you are afraid to say what it is that you do, because I'm not saying that any of those things are wrong. But do you ever feel sometimes that top of mind marketing, because so many are doing it, isn't necessarily the kind of marketing that's generating the leads that you want? And if you think about other professionals, you don't see other professionals, like you don't see a lawyer or CPA doing a pool party or those type of events. They're not sending out newsletters, so to speak, but they're still able to generate and grow business. How do they do it as a professional that has a high value of service compared to as someone that's just trying to say, hey, don't forget me, I'm here to help you do that transaction. But it's up to you to decide when you're ready. I'll bug you and tell them as much as I can because I don't want you to forget. But when you're ready, then let me know. How many of you feel like most of your marketing efforts is, dressed up in a way, but basically saying, are you ready to buy or sell? Do you know somebody that's ready to buy or sell? Yeah. Did you have a comment or a question?
Well, I think you hit it. High value. High value is what we have to give them.
Okay, and what is that high value? That's what we're going to get to.
Above and beyond.
Okay, what does that mean?
Create raving fans.
Create raving fans.
Yeah.
Does any of this sound a little cliche, though, somewhat? I mean, I hate to say it that way because it's true, but we have to define exactly what that is.
Well, so what that means is you have a meeting. Well, I
Okay.
have a meeting with my buyers or seller, whichever, a sit down. And I listen to what their needs are and what's important to them. And then I explain to them how I work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, we just form a working relationship. And then I tell them we're going to work together as a team.
Yeah.
And then I connect with them personally, one-on-one, after the closing, like many times.
Okay.
After the closing.
How many of you feel like, and you've heard this before, and many of you have been agents for quite some time. I didn't even ask. How many of you have been an agent for more than 10 years? Anybody in here more than 10 years? Yeah. How many of you more than 5 years? Okay. How many of you under 5 years? Yeah, several. Okay, so somewhere in there. Anybody over 10 years? Did I ask that? 20 years even? 25 years? Wow, that's great. Yeah. So how many of you have heard and feel like it's all about relationships? You're building relationships. And when you think about raving fans, the raving fan is about the relationship, right? Here's the thing, though. If you think about it in terms of an offering, of something that you go out there and buy, relationships are good. But is that the reason that you buy those products and services from those different groups, right? And the reason I say that isn't because having a good relationship is not a good thing. It is a great thing. But you have to think about it from their perspective, what they want. And typically, they don't want a relationship with an agent, if you think about it. What they want is to buy a house. What they want is to get a good deal. What they want is to sell their home and get the most money for it. So let's get down to the core things that they want and find ways that you can communicate to them what your value is based on their wants, not just based on what you think that they want. And a lot of times this idea of raving fan, relationships, those type of things are actually what your competitors, especially the discount services, are using against you. Because the idea of them paying you a lot of money for a relationship doesn't quite make sense if it's really about a $30,000 cost based on buying or selling property. Does that make sense? So for example, I had a neighbor, this happened about 6 or so months ago, so it wasn't too long ago, who had just moved into our neighborhood, right? Nice, right across from me. And we were sitting there talking, and obviously, and you know what I do, I asked him, you know, where'd you come from, and how's the move, you know, things like that. Well, I found out that his brother-in-law is a real estate agent. How many real estate agents do you think the average person knows? Yeah, 5 or 6, something like that. Yeah, and I don't know the number. We tried to figure that out, but we couldn't find a set number. But it's somewhere in the close to half dozen, right? And they're trying to decide who to use. When we did the research, we did ask them what kind of agent are they looking for and why and all those type of things. And I'll share that with you as we go through this course because it's very interesting to find that out. But what he told me, which is to illustrate this a little bit, is he said he didn't use his brother-in-law. And then he said that his brother-in-law is still pissed at him for not using him, right? How many of you are mad when that happens? Have you ever had that happen before? You got a neighbor that knows who you are and you talk all this time and you've sent them your newsletter, invited them to your pool party, and then all of a sudden a sign goes up in the yard and it's not your sign. You're like, what the hell? Like, you knew that I'm your guy, right? And then you talk to them and they've got 5 other people that they know. They didn't. This was funny when we did the research. They didn't use any of the people that they knew. None of them. Why didn't they use any of the people that they knew? Because they didn't want to share personal information with those people. The relationship part actually worked against it. Right? In some ways, relationships can work against the idea of providing a professional service. I asked him why, and this is the funny thing, I don't even totally understand that. He said, I wanted to be able to fire my agent if I didn't like what he was doing, and I can't fire family. That was his response. I can't fire family. Then I found out exactly what happened through the process of him buying a house. He actually sold his house with a discount service. Why did he do that? Because he's going to make more money, right? He's going to make a lot more money with that. So he uses a discount service. I don't know which one. I didn't, try to get into that. If I did, I still wouldn't say it. But he used a discount service to sell his house. Then he rented for 6 months. How many people know that did that this last time around where it was a seller's market and they could make all this money, but they didn't feel like they could buy a house because it was just so crazy, right? So he then rented for 6 months. How much did it cost him to rent? Right? Probably, I didn't ask him, but I'm assuming he has a family, so it's probably about $2,000 or $3,000 minimum that he used. Probably wasn't near as nice as the house that he was in. Probably had a bunch of his stuff in storage because he couldn't move it around. Is it convenient to move from your home to even another home, let alone a rental property? Not at all, right? He then rented for 6 months. Then he bought his other house, his new house that he just bought in our neighborhood, with a discount agent when he was going online looking for homes, right? He didn't even use the same agent, which seems crazy. If you have an agent that's going to help you sell your house, shouldn't that be the same agent if you have a high value of service that you communicate well to them, that they would want to work with you to buy the next house as well? Wouldn't it be even better to have a service that you offer that helps people transition from one home to the next? I'll teach you how to have what's called a home transition program. We call it the PPA in this group coaching, where we teach agents how to have a program that has a plan and then a set of action items. So it's a program with a plan and a set of action items that all have a name to it. And this particular one we call the home transition program. You know how many people would appreciate having someone actually plan out with them how to transition from going from one house to the next? And yet we don't even talk about things like that. What do we talk about? Oh, you want to go look at a house? Yeah, I'll show you that house, right? You want to list your house? Here's my presentation, which is primarily what? A CMA. Here's what your house is worth. I'll put a sign in your yard, put it up on the market, and it's going to sell. And the next time you'll see me is when? Honestly, when is the next time you're going to see me? The closing table. You won't even see me at your open house because I send a buyer agent to the open house because I don't want to go to the open house, right? How many of you hate open houses? Honestly, you hate them. Can you do something better on a Saturday and have 4 neighbors show up and that's it? So I will teach you how to have a real open house, have 50, 60, 70 plus people come there, because you know when a home should sell, by the way? Just after the open house. It should be a grand opening to the market. What happens the first week of a house going up on the market? That is the best week that house is ever going to see in terms of interest in that property. The very best week. You combine that with not just the MLS marketing, but marketing on social media, which I'll show you how to do. You should be able to get the last open house I went to in Denver with one of the agents that I coach, 86 people not only went to the open house, but registered as they went to the open house. She got 7 more deals out of it. 2 of them were already under contract. They got 8 offers on the house. even right now in this market. Now, someone mentioned the market's still tight because inventory is tight. Even with high interest rates, there's still a lot of buyers out there, and there are more buyers than there are homes for sale. So there's lots of opportunity out there. But how many of our clients are making really stupid decisions? How many are doing like my neighbor, who is so exasperated by the whole process? This one told me, I never want to move again, right? Never wants to buy a house again, never wants to move again. Not because it's not a great thing. He's got a beautiful home. He should be excited about the fact that he got this beautiful home. But what he remembers is the ordeal. How horrible it was to try to go through this process of buying a house, because guess who was the person that was responsible to figure it all out? He was. The real estate agents were there to do what? A transaction. And that's where the problem is if you want to provide a value of service. So let's go through and figure out what it is that's driving our clients to do what they want and give them more of what they want. Because if you don't know what they want, how can you give that to them? If what we're thinking about is what's in your head every time you make a phone call, every time you send out your marketing, you want the next transaction. And why do you want the next transaction? Because that's where you get paid. And then it's about money. And then the discount services come out and they make it about money. And now it's all about money and convenience, not about quality of service. And honestly, and I hate to say it, we're kind of like the CEO of Blockbuster. Everybody wants my quality of service. Everybody wants all this great stuff that I have to offer. And what they really want is, I just want you to be available when I want to look at a house, because I didn't involve you in any other decision that I made. And I just want you to put a sign in the yard because the market's going to take care of my home for sale. Because how many of you actually help people get their homes ready to sell? I bet some of you do. Good. Because a lot of agents don't. How many of you are embarrassed to tell your client that your house smells? That your house has too much stuff in it and we need to clear most of it out? And that if you don't pay for staging, you're nuts. Right? You know how much money people are walking away from when they sell their home? Even though it sells quickly and they think, wow, it's great. And you put a post up there about how you just sold a house and you sold it over asking price and you got multiple offers. Was that what you did, or is that what the market did? Right? But if you can add to the value of that, when people watch HGTV, how many of our clients watch HGTV? Every single one of them, right? And what are they seeing? They're seeing twin brothers that fix up homes and make dream homes. And they see Chip and Joanna Gaines that fix up homes like that. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have a twin brother or a spouse that does renovation. But what I am saying is there's more that you can offer to our clients during the process of buying and selling properties, a lot more than we're doing. Because we're so focused on the transaction and on the money. So are they, so are our competitors. And it's all become about money and convenience. And then at the same time, we're walking around acting as if people choose me because of my quality of service that I offer. And really what the quality is I'll sit down with them and spend time with them. Yeah, that's right. You might spend more time with them. But are you really offering them anything more than just going through the transaction? Did they call you 6 months ago to get their house ready to sell, instead of calling you on Wednesday for a listing presentation because they want their house listed when? On Friday. And they want the open house on Saturday. I can tell you right now, if you have someone that tells you that they want their house listed on the market in less than a week or within it even a week, that's because they did all the preparation and they've been thinking about it for a long time. And you're there for what? The transaction, right? How do we change that narrative so that you're more to them than just the transaction? So that's where the homeowner life cycle comes in. You have to understand what they're doing and when they're doing it and what's important to them at that time. At any given time, there's only about 4% of people that are looking to buy or sell property. So when we make our phone calls, or we wait for them, however you're doing it, or buy our leads or whatever it is, we're basically in this one little stage right here while they're shopping for a home. Right? We're going to talk about how long these stages are, what they want in those stages, what you can offer in this class. And then over the next 8 classes, I'm going to show you how to bring the value in each one of those stages. Can you imagine that you can call anybody at any time, and at any time they want to talk to you about real estate? Because just about everyone in this country over the age of 25 is interested in their next step in real estate. Even if it's a year down the road, they're interested in planning for it. But they don't have anybody to work with to plan for it, right? If you're working with a CPA and all they do is your taxes, how many of you would feel comfortable if all that happened is you sent them some information, they put together your taxes and they charged you $500 for that? You think, well, I could just do that with TurboTax for a lot cheaper, right? But if you had an appointment with them throughout the year and they told you how to manage your money, they came back to you and said, if you put an extra $1,500 in your IRA account this year, then you can actually take that of what you would normally pay in taxes anyway. So you're not losing any money. You're not taking any money out of pocket, and that money will go straight into your IRA because that's how you can write that off. Wouldn't that be better advice that you get from your CPA? That's what people need and want when it comes to real estate, but we just don't have many agents offering that. There are a lot of agents that don't even know how. Can you talk equity with people? Do you understand cap rates? Do you know how to help people get through this misconception about down payment and all those things that a lot of times we just send them to our lender, right? How many of you, whenever you have any question about anything that has to do with lending, you say, oh, just go talk to your lender or go talk to my lender, right? Are you in those discussions with them? Do you know what buy versus rent means in terms of a report of this is how much money this person is paying per month? When do they hit the break-even point, and when does it actually start making sense in terms of return on investment? And give them a report on that. That's what people need and want. You know how many first-time buyers out there, or I should say how many renters out there want to buy a home? If you were to think about it, how many renters do you think right now would like to buy? Most of them, right? In the 80 percentile. That's a huge amount, right? And what do we do as real estate agents? When you're ready to buy, let me know. And they don't know what the hell to do. They have no clue. A lot of them think they have to put 20 or 30% down. You can, just go talk to the loan officer and they'll tell you what you need to do. And then you wait. And they wait and they don't buy for years. I was getting my hair cut, this is a few months back, at Sports Clips. You know, hit and miss. You know, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good.
Mostly miss.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And I was sitting down, and really sweet girl. She was probably in her early 20s, right? And we were talking. She was getting married. And I'm like, oh, great. And of course, just like you all do, I'm sure you do this. You're like, oh, are you going to buy a house? Are you thinking about buying a home or something like that? Not as a salesy thing, just a kind of, conversation. She goes, oh yeah, we've been living together, which you don't hear that much out here, but we've been living together for 6 years and we've been saving. Guess how much money they had in their bank account saving for a home? $50,000. They've been renting together for 6 years, living together, and they're waiting. I was like, well, how much are you saving for, right? Because as I was talking to her, I was assuming that down payment might be the issue, or they don't have enough money or something like that. They've been thinking about it for 6 years, wanting to buy their own place. It's $50,000. And her impression is that she needed another $10,000, $60,000 because of the 20% that they needed towards the property that they wanted to buy. And even the misconception that we live in an apartment right now, right, a condo type of apartment that they rent. Well, when people are thinking of buying in the first place, they think, well, I want to buy a house with a yard so my dog can be out there in the yard. So what they're thinking about is if they bought a condo that was equivalent to that, it could cost them maybe $250,000, $300,000. But with today's market, if they want to buy that first house, how much is it going to cost them? $500,000. How long does it take to save up for $500,000? They have these ideas about what they want, but they don't have a professional to help them understand that, if you bought something just like what you have now, but a condo, and you only paid $250,000, $300,000 for that condo, your rent would be almost about the same amount as your mortgage, if you look at it from that perspective. And then within a year, you'll hit the break-even point. After that, here's a 9-year projection or 10-year projection. You would have over 200, in the time that they were saving for money, they would literally, if they had bought 6 years ago, because we calculated it out, they would have had over $200,000 in equity. What could they have done with that $200,000? Bought their dream home, right? Bought the house that they wanted. People misunderstand what it means to buy and sell property, and they're left on their own, and they're left with Zestimate, and they're left with what everything is telling them online. So let's go through and find out what it is that they're learning and what they're seeing. Online browsing. Who browses online for a home? Yeah. Anybody had someone recently call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for a house in such an area, and they don't even have a house in mind? Have you had that happen? It's kind of cool when it does. Those are raving fans for sure, right? They're like, yeah, just send me your list of homes that are for sale. I'm not looking on Zillow, right? Which doesn't happen very much anymore, right? The course of action, if someone's thinking about buying, they're going online, right? Guess how long they think about buying a house? And they're buyers, by the way, before they're sellers. You all knew that, right? They're thinking about where they're going to move next before they're thinking about, selling their home. So, how long do you think they're thinking about buying on average? About a year. Yeah, and some of them for several years, right? But a year on average, they're thinking about buying a house. How many of them How many of those people call you, even your raving fans, that year before, right? If they do, wouldn't it be nice to have more of them in your database? That's what you need to do. As a matter of fact, that's what I'll teach you how to do. How to build your raving fan base, but not in a cliche way, in a real value offering way where people are looking to you for advice and consultation about what it means to buy and sell property. As a matter of fact, I want you to change the your name, comma, realtor to your name, comma, real estate consultant, right? Real estate advisor, financial advisor, something along those lines, because that's where the value of service is, okay? They spend an average of 3 to 5 months browsing online before they seek a professional. So during that year, it's the last 3 to 5 months that they act on it. That's when they start driving around neighborhoods. That's when they start going to Zillow and they look for homes that they want to live, that they might want to live in, right? When do they call you? When are they calling you?
When they see a house.
When they want to look at a house. So right now, your role right there has been diminished to what? Yeah, you're a door opener. You're a glorified door opener. And the saddest thing about that is they will pay for Grubhub to come bring them food. They will pay for Uber to take them somewhere. And yet they don't pay you to come and show them that house, right? And then if you do get paid when that transaction happens, they're like, man, look at how much money that person makes, right? And with the new DRE, with the new buyer-broker agreement, right, on that buyer side, we have to put down now how much money we're going to charge them, right, as their buyer representative, their buyer agent. And if the seller doesn't pay that, we now have the legal right to do what? Charge them for it. How many of you are going to go after your buyer for not paying the difference? If you get 2% and you put down 3%, will you go after them for that 1%? Everyone's quiet. Most wouldn't. Why not? Can you get raving fans out of after chasing people for that 1%? I don't think they're going to be your raving fan after you do that, right? And that's what you're trying to create. So why do we even have that contract? Because what's happening in our industry is people feel that they're being forced into a payment, a fee that's so much higher than they think they're getting their value from. That's the reason. The NAR is getting bombarded. Every year they get bombarded with lawsuits about price fixing and about, for example, if you don't put 3% on the backside or even 2.5% or something like that, do you get as many showings of those homes? You don't. And so people feel like, I have to use that. I would like to sell my house on their own. Do you know that our sellers can go on Zillow and sell their home? Everyone knows that's available to them, right? Have you ever walked through it before? You need to do it. Just make up come up with your own address or something. Don't go all the way through. You need to go through the process. It is crazy how interactive it is. It even does a CMA for them in a sense. But there's this estimate. But you know what it does is when you put your house up for sale and you click through the windows that you go through, what they call that, basically you get through the prompts. It'll actually show them all the homes for sale like theirs in their area with little pins and how much they recently sold for if they have that information, right? Which in Utah they don't, but in other places they do, and how much they're being sold for. Do people not look at those and think this is what my house is worth, right? And then they can actually remove or add pins if they want to based on other properties that are there. Isn't that the same thing you do as a professional when you come up with your CMA? Other than the fact that you have access to information that they don't, right, in the MLS because we're a non-disclosure state. But other than that, they feel like they can do it themselves. The reason they get involved with an agent on the buyer side is, I have someone that can get me into the house because I can't get into the house, And then on the listing side, if I don't list it with the MLS, then I'm not going to get as many buyers that are interested in my property. And that's where things have kind of gotten to. It hasn't been about value of service. It's been about price and convenience, which is really, really sad when there's so much more that you can offer. So what do they want? This is what they told us what they want when they think about buying a house. So we'll have a class that's just about becoming the community go-to agent and the value that has in terms of creating those raving fans. This is the top 5 list of what we found people are thinking about when they're purchasing a house, what they consider in order of importance. One is the community that they live in, and I'll teach you what that means. It's not just about a community in general. It's about a value system. It's about what they feel is important to them in terms of their own personal values. Then the commute to work, schools. 4 is home. It's not until the fourth thing, the fourth item on the list that they consider the house. And then the last one are the amenities in the community, like the golf course and the restaurants and things like that. These are all the things that they're considering before they actually go out and think about which home that they're going to move into, right? How many people compromise the home that they decide to buy based on where their kids are going to go to school or the amenities that they have in there? And yet when you go to your website or you think about all your marketing, what is it all about? It's about the home. And you're competing with Zillow, which is very hard to compete against with the money that they're spending, about helping people get into homes. When you have to realize that they're thinking a lot more than just about the home. What do they find when they go online? This is crazy. They go to Zillow, 42 million a month go to Zillow. They say that 50% of the people that go to Zillow are actively looking to buy or sell. Well, obviously they're saying that because what do they want to do? How does Zillow make its money? It sells leads, right? It sells leads, right? So, and they're your listings that it sells. That's why a lot of agents aren't big fans. But what does it tell them? Millions of listings. Whose listings are those? Your listings. Then it says you're in the driver's seat. It doesn't say your agent is in the driver's seat, right? Your agent's going to help you get through it. It's basically saying you're in the driver's seat. You can do this yourself. You want to list your house? Go ahead and list your house here. If you want to find a house, find it here. We'll even tell you how much the house should be sold for with our Zestimate. And that's what it says here, Zestimate on all your homes. We're getting to this point where people can DIY their home purchases. Not even their home purchases, but even the loans that they get. With the Rocket Mortgage, just push a button and get a mortgage. Don't you love that? I love that. Push a button, get a mortgage. Are people making really stupid decisions when it comes to what the mortgage that they get into? All the time. People are buying homes like they buy a TV at Walmart in some ways. They're not planning ahead. How many of you loan officers that are here, if you could work with someone 3 or 6 months before they actually buy, would get them into a better program, would help them get a better rate. Everybody wants the lowest rate, but they don't realize that there are factors involved with that, and they don't plan enough ahead. And then, of course, you've got Homie that are telling you, why pay $18,000 to sell your home? So how do you grow your business? What I'm going to teach you is how to use your SOI to generate leads. And I'll teach you how to do it beyond the annoying sales calls, beyond the newsletters, beyond, not saying you can't do those things, but I'll teach you how to be an agent that provides a value of service and separate yourself from the transaction and from these discount services in a way that people respond to it. I'll teach you how to do 7 appointments, not just 2. What are the 2 appointments every agent knows how to do? The listing and the buying side, right? I'm doing a showing, and I'm going to show you what I can do to get your house listed. And typically on the listing side of things, which we're going to talk about over the next 4 classes, by the way, because that's where all your business should be focused, is on the listing side, because that's who pays for it, and that's who you can impress the most and get more business from. But on the listing side, the unfortunate thing is that we're not bringing as much value to that as we could. And I'll show you how to use the listings as a way to promote what you do, not who you are. How many of you, when you go to a listing presentation, feel like you're going to a job interview? Right? Isn't that why you bring your resume with you? Isn't that what your listing presentation, a lot of it is about? Here's how many years experience I have. Here's my team and what they do and the marketing. And you almost feel like you're interviewing for a job instead of letting them know this is what I do to help you maximize the amount that you're going to make for your home and help you sell just in time. That transition thing that's really important to them. So we'll talk about that in the next class. So what do they, when they go home shopping, they spend about 2 to 6 weeks. We kind of have a broad, 2 to 6 weeks in there, but it's about 4 or 5 weeks that they're spending shopping for a house. They go through 3.2 agents in the process. This is what they told us that they want from an agent, or what they expect, I should say, from an agent. Sell home timely and for top dollar. Show homes and negotiate the offer. Write and manage contract. Does that sound about right? Isn't that about what an agent does? Right? That's what they expect you to do. That's what they think the agent's there for. How many of you can do that? Right? Doesn't distinguish yourself. How many of our discount services can do that? They all can. Now, you can shake your head and know that